Hey there, welcome back to Stellar Horizons Campaign Game Playthrough, episode 25. Quick correction to take care of before we start our turn. We're going to be starting in 2103. In the last turn, when the American CV5 Enterprise fought the pirate, defeated it, it took 1 damage. For every damage that you receive, you need to make a recall roll. And that is a 15. So the Americans did fail that recall roll. Enterprise gets flipped and it earns them a biology marker. Which is a 2. All right, now we can move on to the rest of 2103. Okay, so back in the build phase. Here we go. Asians, an orbiter and a probe for 5 billion. Next up, Americans, flyby and a probe for 4. They're also spending a fuel and a supply from their asteroid belt base to ready this American CV4. And finally, the Russians, 4 billion for a flyby and a probe. Everybody's doing pretty good on money, especially the Asians. But at this point, they could spend money a little bit faster if they wanted to invest more in launch vehicles. But I'm going to kind of hold on to the money and see. Everybody's building. The only robotic explorer that the Asians have left is that telescope. Russians, orbiter. Americans, telescope. So everything else is on the board. They'll probably have to flush, let some of those go at the end of the decade. And in fact, I guess I need to just double check. Nobody's allowed to go more than 4 over your limit. The Russians have a limit of 1, so they could have 5 total REs. 1, 2, 3, 4. That looks good. 1, 2, 3. Nothing there. And 4. So this flyby will be their 5th. I'm not going to count the probe as since it's just kind of a one and done. It can't exist by itself. So I think that, that's going to be the limit for the Russians, and I guess we can check the limit. I know the Americans are fine. Their limit is 3 plus 4 would be 7. So these guys, 2 plus 4 is 6. How are they doing? Nothing here. None there. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like they've just got 4 on the board right now. This will be their 5th. So they're okay. They could go as high as 6. All right. So with those builds, let's take care of the transfer box movement. So we've got a lot of things here. So all of these were already in the box. This Asian CV arrives. These guys were in the 2 box, and now they're in the 1 box. A little crowded there. Orbiter and flyby, orbiter, all these flybys. Nothing there. American orbiter, getting closer. But let's not forget these down here, which I often do. So rover and CV arrive at Venus, American rover at Mercury. 1. I'm just counting again for Russians. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They actually are at their limit. I think I failed to count one of those down there. So they're at their limit. What did we say that was? 4 billion, so they can't build those right now. And we'll give them their money back. And the Americans. I guess we should check them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they can go to 7. So that makes 6. Okay. Just kind of waving the, sorry if I'm waving the camera around too much. All right, that's all the mandatory movement. Asian movement. Okay, nothing over here, but asteroid belt. Well, what do we got going on here? I'm sure this reserved CV, let's head back to the base. This CV4 also heading back to the base and unloading that ore. The CV5 though, it's kind of free to do what it wants. There's no chance of combat now, so just using it as an exploration vehicle is the way to go. Let's go ahead and send it out to Jupiter. So it goes in the 1 box. There's still EO, which gives a bonus to crewed exploration. So I guess that sounds like a good idea. Okay, other Asian movement. So that was both of those crewed vehicles. That one's on the, so that's I think all of their crewed vehicles that fly by. We don't need to resolve those yet. So we may just have their launch. Yes. So orbiter on an LV-4 with a probe. I think the destination, they've already got an orbiter coming into Jupiter, so I guess we'll send this one to Saturn. Launch. 18. Rocket is not recovered. No problem with the orbiter. Checking. Okay, 5 years out, or 5 years travel time normal. 3 bonus for the LV-4 orbiter and probe in the 2 box. That looks like all of the Asians' movement. Next up, the Americans. Let's go down the list here. Mercury needs to move into orbit. Just a simple engine check, no problem, 90. Orbiter is going to land on Mercury. Got to remember that there's this sun observation spot that you can put an orbiter there. And it's got a 5 physics location. Okay, American CV3, no movement, no roll required. So it's going to land on Venus. I think the Americans are thinking, if we get Venus explored and lock that volcanoes in, this would actually be an ideal base, location for a base, which provides fuel better than the moon, so they could let this one go to keep their base support limits a little closer to normal. The other thing is Venus, so somebody, one of the comments, we haven't talked about terraforming yet. You know, this is the terraforming track. It's a collective thing. So if you spend, it's all supply points, and the first tech is coming up. We've got 4 points, so everybody could pick it, including the Russians could have picked it last time. And then the only improvement is 2 steps later. Terraforming point cost 3. So those costs are expended in supplies. You can do it every year. You can do more than 1 per year, but it costs 1 extra supply per step additional point that you're buying. So like first one is 4, then the next one's 5 and 6 and so on. Getting Venus fully terraformed, or even getting any of these worlds half terraformed or fully terraformed, that's a lot of victory points, and probably somebody should consider it. But that will generate, you want to make sure that you've got the most settlements, because that's really where the points come in. Okay, anyway, that's the Venus CV3 movement. We have a 4 and a 5, and then that's all Russian stuff. We've got the American damaged. Enterprise took damage. So this 4 and 5 at the base. The Americans still need to come out here to their spirit base and collect those resources. So I think the CV4 will come out to spirit base and load 6 supplies. The Endeavour, on the other hand, is a great exploration vehicle, and I think first they're going to move it out here. Let's see if we can't knock out that Hygeia Palace. Other American movement. So that's all of that. There's a Russian orbiter flyby. Rover's already there. Orbiter's there. Orbiters. So that looks like all the American movement except for their launch of this flyby and probe on an LV-4. It's definitely overkill with the probe. I think this time they'll just send it straight onto Jupiter. A 9, so the rocket is not recovered. Flyby and probe are surely going to go into the 1 box. And that will be all the American movement. Next up, the Russians. So they have a rover, which needs to roll. Venus, no problem. It's going to land on Venus. What do the Russians have here? Okay, so they kind of, that was a waste. They thought they were going to get the pirate. You know, they spent 2 turns trying to track down that pirate and never managed to, didn't manage to only land 1 hit, so they didn't get the kill. So they've got 2 CV4s and a CV5. I think for the Russians, they're just going to send it all to Jupiter. And I'm going to stack it underneath this flyby because that's the flyby is going to actually have an exploration this turn. So there's a bunch of things in the 1 box. Again, other Russian movement, I think the answer is no. Okay, so down to exploration. We've got lots, so hopefully we won't miss too much. I think it was Ron he has got an eagle eye, and he caught a couple of times in the last couple of videos where I missed a life check. We'll try to do better on that. Russian rover, 4 + 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A success and a 27. Where are the Russians at? 21 is their malfunction rate, so no problem there. That's physics for Venus. Just a 1. All right, space telescope at Earth. Targeting Sedna. So that's 4, 5, 6. The 5 is a success, but that's a 16, so that telescope is getting removed. And so that's a physics for the Sedna and an engineering marker. I can already tell we're going to blow through all of the physics markers sometime in this decade, and we will have to and a 2 engineering for the malfunction. Next up, anything at Mars? No. Any Russian activity here? No. Okay, there's a movement I forgot. The orbiter. Russian orbiter needed to make an engine check. Looks good. Okay, so the Russian orbiter, I think, just going to go for Jupiter, but it's going to explore. I think it's going to explore Europa. So 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the tech bonus +1 and the distance cancel each other. So that's a 7. And that's a short-lived orbiter. 5% failure or malfunction in a 10. So all they're getting is the engineering marker. I think that orbiter was built by the lowest bidder. I get a 2. The orbiter comes off. So the Russians can go back up 2 REs next turn. So far, flyby. What do they want? Well, they need some biology, and they're not getting it. So best biology location is going to be this one. 5 plus 4 is 9. And yeah, they got the 8 success, 62 no malfunction. That is a successful biology poll for Titan, which is a 2. And an engine check now for the flyby. No problem. Flyby moves on to the 1 box at Uranus. That's all the Russian stuff there. So they've got their orbiter at Uranus. 2 plus 1 is 3. And 4. Yeah. It's pretty much all the same. So I think they'll go for this one. So we said, so it's going to end up being a 7. The 7, 3 is a success, 75, no malfunction. Show you where we're going. And that was Charclo, I don't know how to pronounce that. I've never heard it pronounced, to my recollection. 2. There's no biology. There's no biology out here, right? Yeah. Everything out here is all physics and a little bit of engineering, but mostly physics. That was the end of the Russians' explorations. Okay, next up, Americans. Pathfinder rover. 5 plus 2 is 7, and then that's going to be another 6, so a 13. They got the 3, so they get to draw 2 engineering markers. Numbers are 1 and a 1. Next up, American CV. Here at Venus, 4 plus 2 is 6, plus another 4 is 10. So that's a guaranteed physics, and we're just rolling for the recall. 33, they're good on recall. I think their recall is still 25. And we said physics. They got a 3, so that is a depletion, earning them a political marker. And Venus, let's go ahead and Venus is reduced to a 1. Pull a world card. No. Subterranean water requires icy, something that Venus definitely is not. And the life check, 1%. Nope, no life. Next, for the Americans, the Endeavor. So, it's a 6 plus 2 is 8, 9. So it's 9. And it gets to roll 2 red dice. They're good, 38. No recall. Engineering marker for Hygeia Palace is a 1. Next up for the Americans. American Flyby at Jupiter coming in. I think here's a movement that we failed to do. I'm going to go ahead and let the Americans fix this. The CV4. Well, here's a question. They can just bring all the supplies back. They could also just stay there and do an exploration while they're there. I think we'll do that instead. All right, so they're going to do the exploration at Europa. Unless we want them to go over to EO. They'll stick with Europa. So 3 plus 2 is 5, and a 4 makes 9. They got the 10, so no success on the exploration. 72, no recall. Now the Americans can do their flyby from the 1 box. They'll target Europa. So that is a 4, plus 4 is 8, and then minus 1 for the distance. So a 7, 91, that's a success. That's biology. And a 1. That's that flyby. They don't have anything else in the Jupiter system. I'm just double checking, make sure. Okay, it does have a probe though. I think they'll save it for Saturn. Nah, they'll probably just spend it there. Okay, American flyby at Saturn. Do something a little different. They're going to target Hyperion, Pistis. So that's a 5 plus 5. That's a guaranteed engineering. And they're just rolling a malfunction. 24, no malfunction. Engine check for the move after, no problem there. So we said guaranteed engineering, which is a 2. Flyby moves on to Uranus. American rover here is a 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 3, 13. They've got the 2, so they get to pull 2 biology markers. And there is no malfunction. First is a 1, next one a 2. Just grinding it out. Next up, for the Americans, Orbiter Shoemaker. That is 4. So that would be an 8. That's also an 8. All of these are 8s. So engineering or physics. I think they're going to go for cherry glow at an 8. They got the 1, so that's a success. They also rolled a 6, so that's a malfunction. The orbiter is going to come off. Shoemaker, so it does have, let's see here. So I just pulled it off. So we said Churiclo physics, and then an engineering marker. Physics is a 1, no depletion. Engineering is a 2. And that orbiter is gone. Just lining that up. Okay, next up, that orbiter will arrive next turn. I think that is all of the Americans' explorations. Let's do the Asians. They don't have anything down here. Okay, I was like, why is there a ready CV? It just had a load of cargo. Okay. The Asian flyby at Jupiter. So let's target Europa. It's a 4 plus 1 plus 2, 7. Success, no malfunction. We said Europa. That's physics. I'm sorry, biology. We just got a 1. Engine check for the flyby. Good to go. It's on to Saturn. Flyby at Saturn. They will be targeting, I think they'll target the, see here, that's 2 plus 2 is 4, 5, 6, 7. Or 4 and 5. I guess I'll go for the closer to the sure thing. So they'll do 9 at Titan. A success, a 56, no malfunction. Biology marker pull is a 1. And engine check, a 5. That flyby is actually, that's okay for an engine check. Only fails on a 3 or less now. So flyby heads out here. And we've got the rover. So 4 plus 2 is 6, plus 5 is 11. $63. No malfunction, successful exploration. 1 biology. Yeah, at this point, I mean, everybody seems to have the money to throw all the robotic explorers they want out here. And that seems to be worthwhile. The malfunction rates have gotten low. Just harvest that those tech points as quick as you can. With every tech box is worth 3 points. I think that looks like all of the explorations. So remote mining would be next. Do we have any remote mining? He explored. So there is no remote mining going on this turn. Next up, trade and base construction phase. So trades, don't think we're doing any trades. Again, Asians have a sell. I think they will, at least they may ship, or it's still worthwhile to do from Earth, although you are risking the rocket. So if you lose an LV4, kind of makes it a wash. So we'll think more about that. I guess I could send the CV4 to Venus. That might be worth doing. Or Jupiter, either one. Okay. And they're not going to sell. I was just looking to see, is anybody going to execute any of those supply? I don't think so. Not right now. Well, now let's think about that for the Americans. No, and the answer is no. Okay, base construction phase. I think we talked last time about the defense networks and that kind of stuff. I think we will. Does anybody want to do that? Sure, why not? I think both the Americans and the Russians are going to build the small defense network. So that's going to cost them both 3 ore. And the Americans are doing it 2 here. Now, the small by itself is not going to prevent being embargoed, but the large one does. Large is another 6 ore. With the small ones, at least worth a victory point, and then they can wait and defer till a little bit later in the decade and see if they want to go that route. I think that is the end of our turn. Doing pretty good on time. Let's go ahead and do one more real quick. So 2104 build phase coming up. All right, here are the builds for the Asians. They are spending 9 billion to build an LV4 and 4 supplies. They're going to launch that out to the asteroid belt. And even though they've got some supplies over here that they're going to bring in, just going to supplement it, start building up settlements. They're also expending a supply and a fuel at the asteroid belt to get that crude vehicle ready. Next up, the Americans. They're spending an ore to repair the damage, a supply and a fuel to fix the Enterprise. And they are spending on Earth 8 billion for an LV4 and an orbiter. I thought about sending that orbiter to the sun observation spot. Decided that was a waste of a good spectrometer. But maybe the Russians will do it next turn. They could be doing it this turn, but they've got the probe. I think they'll do the, so here's the orbiter and probe that we just talked about. 3 billion. The Russians' good probe is still, or I'm sorry, their good orbiter is out here at Uranus. That looks like all of the builds. We've taken care of readying crewed vehicles there. So on to movement. Things in transfer boxes. Got some crewed vehicles coming in with resources. We've got a lot of stuff coming into Jupiter. Let's see here, American flyby and probe. It's going to use the probe. Got that. We got a big stack of Russians. And the orbiter goes to the 1 box. Flyby, these guys are in the 2 box. All of these guys arrive, and finally the American orbiter. They're going to have another chance at getting their mission at Sedna. And whew, I keep on forgetting for the Russians. Well, their mission, crewed vehicle exploration of Callisto. They're here at Jupiter now. They're ready to go do the Callisto mission. Okay, that looks like all of the transfer box movement. So what else do we have here? So first with the Asians, they've got 2 crewed vehicle 4s. Well, one of them definitely needs to come over here to Ceres and go to their T-base and load up the supplies. The other one, I think they would like to get some fuel to take to Mars and sell. So that's generating money that way, I think, is a valid strategy, because that's really profitable. In the future, that money can be converted into tech points, or once you get space elevators, I think that's also a good way if you need to build up a fleet for military purposes. Being able to spend cash on Earth to build up bigger CVs would also seem to be a good strategy. So that CV4 is going to head out to Jupiter 1 year. The CV5 that just arrived at Jupiter. Oh, well, let's take care of this CV3. CV3 goes to the base, drops off this ore. CV5, so what do they want to do? Well, they'd like the biology at Europa. There's also this nice big crewed bonus at EO. I think they'll go for the EO bonus. So we're not rolling, we're just moving right now. All right, flyby is there, rover. It looks like all of their board movement except for launching that LV-4 from Earth. And 8, they've lost the rocket. That's second 1 in 2 turns, so that's been expensive. And the 4 supplies make it out to the asteroid belt. I don't see any other Asian movement. Okay, next up, the Americans. I think we're good here. CV3 is going to remain. This CV4 is going to be returning, and this CV5. Okay, this one, I think they'll leave Hygeia there. So the American CV5 is going to head out to Jupiter for some exploration. Okay, now that they've got exploring vehicles, this one they need to get this one is coming back. We just said this one's going to the base and unloading these supplies for the Americans. Hang on now. Oh, we don't have the right mix. Okay, so it's 4 and 2. I'm just trying to, if the Americans want to build a base at Jupiter, what's the right way to shuffle this around? This CV4 can load up with supplies. In fact, it already had supplies, so there's no point in stopping at the, okay, so the Centaurus was over here. There's no point in stopping at the base if we're just going to turn around and come out to Jupiter with 6 supplies. And then the question is, does this one need to bring all of that back right now? They want a small mining station, so somebody's going to have to bring ore and supplies. The American base is low on fuel. It's only got 1 fuel. So it would seem, right, and everybody's got base construction -2. Oh wait, this one does not have enough. So that's a no-go. It's sitting with 6 supplies, but it needs 7. So we are going to need to do some shuffling and consolidation. Okay, so everybody needs to rendezvous. So 1 full CV4 is just required to build the base, and another one will be required to bring the additional materials for the facilities. And that CV5 is staying there. Okay, and this Russian is right there. That is a flyby with a probe, so it doesn't have a move. And I don't think, other than that orbiter, the scattered disk moving to Sedna, I'll go ahead and say it. This is where the engine check roll kicks in. Nope, 77. It's good to go. So out to Sedna. And then the only other thing we have is an LV4 launching an orbiter, and I think they're going to send it to Jupiter. Or do we go for Saturn? Going for Jupiter. All right, LV4 is recovered. Orbiter is on LV4, so that'll also be in the 1 box. Okay, that's all the Americans' movement. Next up, the Russians. They don't have any movement over here. What do they have going on here? Well, this one's returning to base for supplies. All of the other Russian crewed vehicles are out here. They want the Callisto mission. Certainly the CV5 is going to Callisto. Now the question is, do they want resources? And I think the answer is yes. They're going to send 1 CV to Europa and 1 on into Jupiter. So they can get 1 going for supplies, 1 going for fuel. That's those. Nothing. Wait. Yeah, Russians. We have a Russian flyby. Looks like we're good, except they are launching their orbiter and probe on an LV2. And I think they're going to send it to Jupiter. That's a 12. Rocket is not recovered. Three years travel time. Normally, that was on an LV2, so the orbiter and probe get a 1-year bonus. So it's going to be in the 2 box. Okay, that's all of our movement explorations. Starting with the Russians. First thing up, rover. 4 + 1 is 5, 6, 7, 8. They got a 10, so that's a no success, no malfunction. Nothing here for the Russians. What do they have at Jupiter? They've got the CV5, the Moskova. That's it for exploration. So the Moskova is a 6 plus 2 for technology plus 2. So that's a 10, automatic success. That is biology. So they're just rolling for recall. 22. Well, that is a recall. So they're getting a biology first for Callisto. And they got a 2. So they did not complete the mission. Next one up, bummer, wrong order. They got a 5. So they do not get the depletion or complete the mission. And that's flipped. Other Russian explorations. They've got a flyby and an orbiter. So orbiters 2 plus 1, yeah, 3. So they're going to go for the 7 at physics. Yeah, the 7 physics at Cherry-Clo still. Trying to get a world card, make that more interesting. 3 is a success, 23, that's okay as well. Their malfunction rate is 21. So a successful physics with the orbiter. A 2. Next up for the Russians, their flyby. Sorry. 3 plus 1 is 4. I think I'll do some engineering actually. These are pretty much the same. We'll do Oberon. So we said 4 plus 5, 9. 9 for engineering. Looks good, and an engine check for the flyby. Engineering marker is a 1. Flyby moves on to Neptune. Yep. Orbiter flyby. That looks like that's all of the Russian exploration. Next up, the Americans. Rover at Mercury is a 7 plus 6, 13. They did it again. This one looked a little cocked. And that was a 3, black 3. Okay, they're okay. So, successful exploration, no malfunction, 2 engineering markers for the Americans. A 2 and a 1. Next up, American CV, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 9 physics. 9 they got, 88 no recall. Physics marker. 2. Next up for the Americans, Endeavor. 7, that's 8, 9. 2 red dice. All right, I just had a brief pause. I think we were just about to roll for the Endeavor. And so that looks good, but an 11 is a recall. So the Endeavor's going to flip. They're going to get the engineering marker and then a biology marker. Engineering is a 3 though, so they got the depletion they were looking for. Biology is a 1. Hygeia Palace goes to 0. World card. See if that's going to be any more interesting. And unlikely, but maybe just a little bit. So this is rocky asteroid, so we got ridge terrain now as an option. So they're both 3s. Ridge terrain is just a tiny bit better resource wise and yeah, it's got just, but mostly Hygeia Palace is kind of boring. I guess I can do that. Okay. If you're trying to mine ore, you'll go to Vesta. If you're trying to mine supplies, I guess you would come over here, and same thing with fuel, but those are pretty, you have to be pretty hard up. Okay, next for the Americans, they've got their flyby and probe. They're going to use the probe. Probe is 9 plus 2 is 11 plus 8 is 19. No malfunction roll required. So they get the 2 physics markers for Jupiter. A 3 and another 1. And I did forget to pull just a moment ago a political marker for the Americans, so now I'm giving them 1 more. For Jupiter's, that 2 goes down to a 1, and I know, Ron, you're thinking, Ben, you're forgetting the life check at Hygeia. And the answer is almost. Whoa! But you're so glad that I didn't forget, because we just rolled signs of life on Hygeia Palace. We haven't had that in a while. So that is going to be worth something to the Americans. Okay, I'm going to pause. I think it's like a victory point and some biology points, but I'm going to figure out exactly what it is. Okay, it was a victory point marker, a political point, and 2 biology chips, which are 2 and a 2. So that's really nice for the Americans. So they're having a pretty good turn so far. We haven't even finished doing the Jupiter, but they've got, that's a 5 and a 2. So they're at 7, 8, 9 political points that they've earned so far. That does include Jupiter's depletion, which we were in the middle of resolving. So we gave them the political marker, we reduced the number, so now we just need to pull a world card. I was with a probe, so there's not 2 world cards. It's mixed ice, doesn't apply. And I guess we can do the life check again. 1%. No. Okay, got that taken care of. Other American explorations at Jupiter? No. Oh, we do need to do an engine check with the flyby. And it's there. American rover here. 6 plus 7. 13. Let's This one's cocked, but it doesn't matter. No malfunction, and only a single biology marker, which is a 2. Okay, that takes care of the rover here. American flyby. So that's a 5. We're going to go for the sure thing here. 10 at Cherry-Clo Physics. So first roll will be for a malfunction. No. And the engine check. That's cocked. Something 6, so I guess I didn't need to, because so we said physics. It's a 1, so there's no depletion over there. And now the Americans, this is where they want. So that orbiter is going to be a 3 plus 8 is 11. Guaranteed. To get the 1. 45, no malfunction, just the single physics marker pull for Sedna. Looking for a depletion so they can get their mission, and they got it. It's a 3. So that's a depletion, so that's going to be 2 political markers. 1 for the depletion, 1 for Sedna. And Sedna was worth 5 points. That's their second mission this decade. Of course, again, they don't have no missions to replace it. 7 goes down. World card for Sedna. Let's see here. It's an icy minor planet, just so we know. I'll put you over here so you can look at the scattered disk. And I'm just doing kind of a bigger shuffling than I normally do. It's been a little while since I've done a big shuffle. And so for Sedna, it's world card. Frozen methane, so that applies. Frozen methane, any world but Venus. The question is, do they want to put it out here? And the answer is no. Americans would actually prefer frozen methane is a great source of fuel, and it can go on any world but Venus. So they're not really looking for fuel out here at Sedna. It gives a +1 spectrometer bonus. I'd rather keep it in the stack in case it gets pulled for something a little more interesting. Life check, it said no, was a 5. $32. So that is it for the Americans. And finally, the Asians. Scanning through. And I don't think there's anything here. Yeah, nothing can explore from there. Asians are doing EOs. That's a 7 plus 4, 11. $56, no recall, just the single physics. Which is a 2. Next up for the Asians, this. Just trying to decide if we care about the order. Flyby or rover first. Let's try the rover. That's a 4 plus 2 is 6, so 5 is 11. $28, no malfunction. 5, no second, so they're just getting the single biology. Which is a 1. The flyby will also target. So the flyby is a 3 plus 5, 8. Four is a success, 21, no malfunction. And then let's do an engine check. 4%, that's okay as well, but just barely. So another biology marker at Titan. 2. And the flyby moves on. This flyby, and obviously you have to keep track of, this one has already explored this turn, so I'm moving it out to the 1 box, but in some cases it may make more sense to work from the outer system and work in, so that you don't run into that problem if you were to be confused. But I think it's pretty easy with 3 players. Flyby. Okay, so 4. And the question is, engineering or physics? Engineering or physics? I think the answer is physics. So 4. I'm sure I rolled this, but I'm not 100% sure on the American flyby. Anyway, 4, yeah, because it was an automatic. 4 and 5, 9. Eight, success, no malfunction. Physics marker pull is a 1. And the engine check is a 30. And that will be, and we've moved it on out to Neptune, so everybody is hanging in there. And what's next? Remote mining. There is some of that. Russians. Here, so that's an 8 for supplies. And they get to subtract 1. Forgot about that. So 9, but with their -1, they get the 8. So they do get 2 supplies. And there's no recall, this one. So there's some clarification. So you do double up. Andrew clarified. You can check the comments in one of the recent videos. I think he explained it better than I would if I tried to speak to it right now. Anyway, I know how it's going to work. It's a 100 for the recall, so no recall, and they got a 10. So that means they're going to get, this was an 11, right? So they're guaranteed, that's, and 10 is less than 11, so they get the 2 fuel. Any other remote mining? The answer is no. Trade and base construction. Still, we are not doing any trades. No need right now. Base construction. So they did the defense network before, but they're going to hold off right now. Same thing with the Russians. But these guys, the Asians, are going to spend 2, 2, and 1 and go from 3 settlements to 4. And with that, that is going to be the end of 2104. So we're halfway through the decade. People are doing pretty good on explorations. The Russians are still a little bit behind, but otherwise things are looking good for everyone. Still a good amount of money, fair amount, and yeah, Americans are gearing up to build a base at the Jupiter system. Not sure if the Russians are going to be able to pull that off, or the Asians. So we'll see. I haven't been doing a good job of their base construction planning. Anyway, see you next video. Thanks a lot.